Justin Gaethje is a monster. He's a monster. He's a terrifying individual.
You know, this guy, he hit like truck, you know.
Oh, he got him with a overhand right. It's over. That is it.
Justin Gaethje, the untold story of UFC's most exciting fighter. When people debate who's the greatest fighter of all time, chances are the name Justin Gaethje doesn't pop up too often. While Gaethje has recorded some massive wins and demolished several of the scariest lightweights on earth, his resume doesn't match legendary fighters like Jon Jones, St-Pierre and Khabib Nurmagomedov. But if that discussion is about who is the most exciting fighter in mixed martial arts history, well then the name Gaethje gets thrown in the mix instantly, or at least it should be. After all, Gaethje isn't nicknamed the Highlight because he likes to paint things in bright colors. Nope, he carries that nickname because his fights are always of the can't-miss variety. As in, you're supposed to get married the next time Gaethje's fighting? Cancel it. You promised your sweet grandma you'd help her move the same day Gaethje's fighting? Sorry, Gram, can't make it. Your parents' 50th wedding anniversary is the same night Gaethje's defending the BMF title. Sorry, folks, I'll send you a nice card. So, how did Gaethje go from being a little kid in Arizona to one of the most entertaining fighters this galaxy has ever known? And how did he silence his critics and haters who argued he couldn't hang with the planet's best lightweights? What is the Highlight's untold story? Well, before we start taking a look at all that, if you enjoy this video, be sure to like it and subscribe to our channel. The early years. Justin Ray Gaethje was born back in November 1988 in Tucson, Arizona, and grew up in the small city of Safford. Both of Gaethje's grandfathers as well as his father were miners. Gaethje's twin brother also worked extensively at the mine, and Justin himself spent a summer mining copper. Gaethje's path to fighting also started at a very young age, as he started wrestling when he was only 4. The sport got into Gaethje's system clearly as he continued to wrestle all throughout his childhood and into high school. Ultimately, Gaethje was invited to wrestle at the NCAA Division I level via the University of Northern Colorado. During his collegiate wrestling career, Gaethje earned All-American status, and on account of his achievements, he was inducted into the University of Northern Colorado's Athletics Hall of Fame. As we all know, Gaethje's days of racking up wins and earning championships didn't end when he finished college. While people largely focus on Gaethje's wrestling and fighting career, what may get overlooked is that Justin graduated from college with a degree in human services. That's right, Gaethje may be one of the most aggressive and destructive fighters ever to step into the cage, but the star fundamentally wants to help and inspire others. Case in point, after he took out Dustin Poirier in their highly anticipated rematch, more on that in a minute, he said this: "I pray for the opportunity to inspire the world. I went to college for social work. I love helping people. To get to do that through this kind of chaos, it's so special to me." Gaethje's MMA journey begins. Gaethje's initial steps into the MMA world began during his college days, as he reportedly encountered and trained with various fighters who came to Colorado to work on their wrestling. That prompted Gaethje to take an amateur fight in 2008, with reportedly next to no MMA training. The future star did just fine, however, as he quickly won the fight by slamming his opponent and their consciousness into oblivion. The fighting bug got its hooks firmly into Gaethje as he proceeded to compete in 6 more amateur fights. After going 7-0 in amateur bouts, Gaethje turned pro in 2011. In his first pro fight against Kevin Kroom, Gaethje's path to becoming a human highlight reel machine remained on track as he quickly won the fight with another nasty slam. The Arizona native kept a busy schedule in 2011 and 2012 as Gaethje fought 6 more times during that period, and he finished his opponents in all but one of the fights. In 2013, the undefeated Gaethje signed with the World Series of Fighting, which was making moves to become one of the sport's bigger promotions. After recording a win over the veteran J.C.S. Cavalcante in his WSOF debut, Gaethje went on to finish Brian Cobb and Dan Lauzon. As 2013 ended, Gaethje was carrying a record of 10-0 that includes 9 finishes. Not a bad way to start your fighting career. The MMA world starts to take notice. So, by 2014, hardcore MMA fans and prospect observers were starting to buzz about Gaethje. On paper, Gaethje was noteworthy because he was a former NCAA Division I All-American wrestler who was 10-0 to date in MMA, and yes, his record featured 9 finishes. But the people who'd been watching Gaethje fight already knew how ridiculously entertaining he was to watch. Gaethje was a pressuring machine who rarely looked to take the fight down. Instead, Gaethje was largely wrecking opponents with punishing leg kicks and powerful punches. He was certainly no lay-and-pray fighter, which Jorge Masvidal admitted not long ago he thought would be the case. I remember I already knew about him because he was an All-American wrestler, so I was like, oh man, here we go again. We have another fucking crotch-sniffing fucking motherfucker. And he wasn't. He's literally the complete opposite. I didn't know Gaethje at the time, or his mindset, or anything. In January 2014, after Gaethje won the WSOF's inaugural title by putting away Richard Paterschnak, the hype train behind him really started to build. That hype train only continued to grow as Gaethje repeatedly defended the WSOF belt. Not only was Gaethje turning heads because of his uber-aggressive style, but a narrative was forming that the champ might possess the nastiest leg kicks in the sport. The move to the UFC. Now sure, by 2017, it wasn't like Gaethje was getting asked to come on The Tonight Show. He wasn't even really a household name in combat sports circles. But there were plenty of hardcore fans who cheered and did so loudly when it was announced that he'd signed with the UFC. In Gaethje's UFC debut that July, he lived up to all the hype and then some in his bout with Michael Johnson. As many predicted would be the case, the fight was an absolute war, so much so it won Fight of the Year honors. It was also a fight that really summed up the Justin Gaethje experience at the time. He was willing to eat 2, 3, or even more shots if it meant blasting his opponent with one of his own. Gaethje put away Johnson in the second round. On account of that win, which moved Gaethje's record to an impressive 18-0, he was tapped to fight former Bellator and UFC champ Eddie Alvarez next. Once again, the fight was labeled as a can't-miss scrap, and once again, that proved to be the case. This time around, however, the seemingly unstoppable machine of Gaethje was, well, stopped. The ridiculously tough Alvarez bested Gaethje in many of the exchanges, and in round 3, he cracked the ladder with a thumping knee that ended Justin's undefeated run. Up next, Gaethje was booked to fight Dustin Poirier in April 2018. Once again, fans were treated to a fight that you could watch every year for the rest of your life. But it was yet another contest that saw Gaethje absorb a ton of punishment and get stopped, proving the critics wrong. Following Gaethje's loss to Poirier, a lot of fans and pundits closed the book on the fighter becoming a title contender. The consensus seemed to be that while Gaethje was one of the most aggressive, entertaining, and dangerous lightweights in the game, his style wasn't conducive to defeating the best of the best. Well, in August 2018, Gaethje stepped onto a new road that would ultimately lead him to a UFC title. The decorated wrestler was booked to fight the massive lightweight James Vick, who'd won 4 straight fights. Justin proceeded to bomb Vick out with booming punches in under 90 seconds. Quick and violent stoppages of Edson Barbosa and Donald Cowboy Cerrone followed. It was clear that Gaethje's boxing had reached new heights, and as a result, he absorbed just 40 strikes total in all 3 of those contests. In May 2020, Gaethje was booked to fight Tony Ferguson for the interim lightweight championship. His chance to firmly muzzle his doubters and critics had finally arrived. Back in 2020, Ferguson was riding a 12-fight winning streak and was widely considered to be one of the greatest fighters on the planet, let alone one of the best lightweights. The fight was outstanding, as we all knew would be the case, but it was the new and improved Gaethje who dropped jaws throughout the MMA by stopping El Cucuy in round 4. On account of winning the interim belt, Gaethje was tapped to fight the legendary smashing machine Khabib Nurmagomedov in October 2020. While Gaethje did plant a few of his infamous leg kicks on the champ, the legend's Galaxy-class wrestling and submission game was too much. Gaethje was subbed in round 2. That loss, however, did not mark the end of Gaethje's title run, as he rebounded with a decision win over Michael Chandler in an instant classic that also won Fight of the Year honors. Gaethje took another loss against Charles Oliveira in May 2022 as Dubronx ensnared him in a fight-ending rear naked choke in the opening round. But in 2023, Gaethje ensured he remained at the top of the lightweight division by scoring wins over Rafael Fiziev and Dustin Poirier. In Fiziev, Gaethje outstruck one of the best strikers on the UFC roster, and in his rematch against Poirier, Gaethje needed less than 3 rounds to avenge his loss to the renowned lightweight. In a fight-ending sequence so befitting of the highlight, Gaethje jolted the MMA world by smashing Poirier with a head kick. That victory also delivered Gaethje his second piece of UFC hardware, the BMF belt. Not bad for a dude who just a few years prior had been written off as a potential champion. What's next for the BMF champ? Now the question is, what's next for Gaethje? Could he be tapped to face the winner of the upcoming fight between Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira? Seems possible, right? Or might the aforementioned Jorge Masvidal come out of retirement in an effort to reclaim the BMF belt? Not long ago, Gamebred said this. "I think he should defend it against me," Masvidal said. "That's what should happen if I was to come back to the sport." Yup, that's a fight that would move some serious volume, no question. But what do you think? Do you want to see Gaethje throw hands with Masvidal? Let us know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and to subscribe to KO Central MMA.